Yo, multiplier here, and another tutorial today. I'm going to try and make it short. It's a bit random, but it's 3 useful little tips for Ableton Live. The sort of little tips and tricks that you don't really know about, but they're super useful to know, and I'm going to tell you them, and you might find them useful. So, number 1 is showing these numbers, because normally when you open Live, it looks like that. And then you can't really see what's been going on with these, what they're called, probably meters of some kind, signal level meters or whatever. But yeah, just drag it up and you can see this value. The lower one is basically the position of this handle thing, which is like the track volume, gain slider, whatever you want to call it. It's just nice to have it in numbers, because sometimes you want to say, pull it down 2.5 dB, and you can't really drag it down 2.5. Now, if you click it, you can kind of press down and press up. That will change it 1 dB at a time. But if you want to do it even more precisely, you're going to need to kind of enter a value like 0.5 or I don't know, whatever. You get the idea. It's just a useful tool to have a number input for this gain slider, because obviously when you mix in, you want to be quite accurate as much as you can, and especially when you're dialing in details, you want to do it as well as possible. Also, this number is basically the kind of the peak that the signal meter has reached. So if we make it louder, see, it went up. It's basically the highest it's gotten, and that's really useful because it means you can see if the channel clips at any one point, because that number will be positive. And it's also really useful, something that I don't think most people keep, at least most beginners don't keep an eye on, is the kind of the relative levels of all the tracks. Because there are things like you want your kicks to be kind of the highest, and then you want your bass, depending on the track, to be pretty near that. And it's useful once you have an understanding of what you want, to see where your respective channels are peaking, because obviously even if it sounds good, if you've got, I don't know, a random synth that's like 5 dB higher than anything else in the track, something's not right there. Either your listening environment's not right, or you've listening to it so long you're not listening to it objectively, or I don't know. It's just useful to know how high your channels are peaking to help inform your decisions. Yeah, so that's that little tip. Nice and quick, in like 2 minutes. Next tip is we'll do utility one. Really useful little thing. Let's get an example of something. Let's try this tonal effect. See what it sounds like. Okay, so let's say, let's turn it off a loop. I don't want it looping. Let's say we want to see what is in the stereo field. So like if we want to take away all the mono information, you grab the utility and rang this width up to 200. Oh, there we go. Hopefully you notice, but basically that's all the stereo information. All the stuff that's on the sides basically is the only thing that's left. And if you don't know much about the stereo field, learn about it. Basically, it's like production 101, maybe 102, but it's fundamental to producing. You need to understand what mono is, what the stereo field is, and give you a quick little idea. Basically, if stuff comes out the speakers at exactly the same time, it will sound like it's in the center, because your brain thinks that it's in the center. But if there's, say, a slight delay between it coming out one side or the other side, it will sound wider. Or if it literally is just coming out of one side, it will sound like it's coming out from that side. So basically your brain creates this kind of stereo image, this kind of 3D world of sound, and it's super important if you're crafting a song to play in that like 3D space. You can kind of manipulate it. So using the width on this utility is one way of doing it. So you drag it to 200, it takes away all the mono information, it takes away everything that is in the center, and just leaves the side bits. Now there's lots of uses for this, whether or not it's checking a mix, or if you just drag it up a bit, it will just like take away, say, half of the mono information, makes it sound a little wider. Maybe you're making space for more mono information. This is just for mixing, maybe. There's lots of uses, but yeah, that's up to you how you use it. Also, if you drag it down to 0, it basically puts it in mono. Now, I can't remember if it actually takes away all the stereo information or whether it kind of puts it in mono. I'm guessing it takes away the mono information, but I don't know, whatever. If you want it in mono, drag it down to 0, or drag it, if you want it more mono, just drag it more towards 0, and then check that it sounds good. Yeah, it's as simple as that, really. But useful little tip. This whip thing is easy to overlook. It's kind of not obvious where you would kind of start playing with the stereo shit. So yeah, that's that. And final thing, still pretty good on time. Let's find a sample that this might actually work for. There you go. Stop. Okay, let's make sure it's not too loud. Cool. So let's say we have that sample and we want to fade in the beginning bit because we want it to kind of come in slowly. One way of doing it is with utility, and then so you'd have utility and then you'd automate this gain parameter. So it'd be obviously smooth because I can't drag it around smooth. That's one way of doing it. But a lot nicer way of doing it that I recently found out is with the fade feature. So you have your thing here, click that, go to fades, and then kind of drag in a bit. You'll see these handles. Now, at the moment, there's a 4 millisecond fade, I think it is, which basically if you go to live preferences and then where's it gone? There you go. Yeah, on the record warp launch bit, this create fades on clip edges thing is turned on. Now this is kind of a bonus little tip. You want that shit clicked, because what that does is for like a super short bit at the beginning of every clip, it creates a fade. And what that does is it just kind of guarantees there's going to be no clicking between start and end of clips. Because if you didn't have this, you might get lucky and the sample might not click, but quite often, especially if you're cutting up samples, it will just click. And this fade, your brain doesn't hear. It's the sort of thing, it's like guaranteeing it's going to sort out the problem of potential clicking. Just click it, you never notice it's there, and it just solves all your problems. I can't remember if it comes clicked on as default or not, but you want to click that. Anyway, for this case, we want the fade to happen kind of over a long time. Maybe this is an effect, or for whatever reason, you can see how there's lots of times we need to bring shit in slowly. So we went to fades, and now we have these handles. So now if we just click it, drag, you can kind of, seems kind of obvious. This curve is basically the volume. So you drag it out to wherever you maybe you want it to fade in over a bar. And what you can do, cool feature, grab this little thing and then drag it around. You can basically change the shape of this cool curve, which, as you can see with the waveform, changes kind of how the volume comes in. So if you had it kind of quite extreme, coming like that, maybe you want it more linear, I guess would be the right word. Or like, I don't know. You see what I mean? Just play around with it. Strangely, they've only got these curve features in Ableton Live 8 for the fades, which is kind of annoying because everyone wanted curves for automation, but at least they're bringing in automation curves for Ableton Live 9, which isn't that far away. It's only about a month away, I guess. So, but anyway, it's also nice to see curves in Ableton Live 8 because curves are nicer. But yeah, fades, just drag it out, nice and simple, sort of thing. I overlooked it for nearly 2 years, but then I saw high-ranking users use these fades, and I was like, fuck, that's kind of really quick and easy. Especially if you want to produce quickly, you're dragging in effects, and you kind of dial in the mix later, but you need to just quickly automate the volume. So quick and easy to do these fades. Like, that's pretty much standard. How quick is this? Like, click fades, drag down, drag out, done. So much quicker and easier than using utilities and automating the gain knob. It's also, I'm convinced it's a lot smoother with these curves. Like, I think there's a reason it's a curve, and it also gives you more control. Like, it's just nicer, and nicer is always gooder. I think that's it. Yep, 10 minutes ish long. 3 little tips with a few little bonus ones thrown in there as well. Yep, I've been Multiplier. Check me out, Facebook, SoundCloud, all that shit. Loads of links below. Yeah, and give me recommendations on shit to do as well, because half run out of ideas, but I still got some other shit I can show you. So yeah, should be good. Have fun.